Have you ever had to deal with challenges like firing people that you're not sure if they're a fit or if you picked the wrong person? Like delegating tasks when you're not sure if you're training people right or if they're not the right people, or even working with family? If so, then tune in for this episode because we're going to go over all of that, plus many more challenges that you face when you're a business owner.
So I asked Frank about how do I keep remote workers engaged, and he gave me a really good tip that he does with you. Well, you do with him. You send an Excel sheet every Thursday, and you ask what went well, what went wrong, and how can I help. How do you stay disciplined? Because I tried that before, and then after like 6 weeks, I stopped kind of responding to that Excel, and they stopped filling it out. So how can you stay like disciplined and make it fun for them to fill out that every week and make it fun for you as well?
It's not fun. I don't give a fuck about fun. Like, I'm trying to be a good leader. I'm trying to build something impactful. And so there's things that we have to do that, like, if you want to have a great engaged team, you have, like, a lot of people get into being an entrepreneur because they want freedom and all these things. But then they also want to have this amazing team and all these things. Well, if you want to have this amazing team that is very loyal to you and will, like, work their ass off at the company, then you have to do that for them. And so I think about it as, like, I have to work my ass off to show them how much I value them, because I do. But in terms of, like, do I like the fact that every Friday, and my assistants can see it on my calendar. I'm like looking for them. I'm like, where is she at? Yeah, Pat knows. It says, like, it has at 5 or 6 a.m. end of week report review. It takes me about 90 minutes to go through all of them. And I do it every Friday because I ask for people to submit it on Thursday. And I've done that for 8 years. And I don't think it's, like, fun. But what I do think is fun is having a team that I feel like has a fantastic culture, that are driven, where I have people that share the same values as me, and where I can retain good people. So it's like in the micro it's not fun, but in the macro it's fun for what you're creating. And so I will say this: if you don't respond to the reports, they will stop filling them out. That's just the science of behavior. And also I think it's very punishing to ask someone to fill out a lot of data and then not respond to it. And so, you could ask anybody in here, if somebody fills out an end-of-week report that I review, I respond to every single thing that they put in. There's probably 6 or 7 sections. I respond to all 6 or 7, like, almost compulsively. Like, I double-check to make sure. And so little things like that are very important in terms of building a culture. And so it may not be fun, but you will see the fruits of your labor in 6 to 12 months. Does that make sense?
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
For sure. Let's go on this side. Okay, right here. Yeah, really overextending right there. Like it's going to pop out of the socket.
Yeah, so we're a husband-wife team. My wife is at home with 4 kids. Baby number 5 is on the way in January.
Oh, cool.
And she's like kind of the Layla of the business, the one that actually does the work. And I'm a little frightened. Like, how do we help her at least get down to, like, she's at like probably 70 hours a week. How do we get her to 10?
This is a real question. What's the difference between 4 and 5? Like at this point?
Oh yeah,
like,
it's more of a zone defense. We're not man to man anymore. We get it, but it's still a lot.
Understood. So how old are they?
10, 7, 4, 2, and minus 6 months.
Understood. Okay.
Yeah.
Zone defense. Okay. I was like, once you got 4, 5, 6, like I don't know.
Yeah, it's just like last kid, we were in the NICU with a baby and like a laptop. So that was
understood.
Good. Yeah.
So it's just tough.
Yeah,
it's a lot. So the way that I've approached this, because we have like a lot of moms in terms of our portfolio companies. In fact, we have one right now. She just had a baby and she's having her second. Is I actually attack it from the home, which is like, how do we relieve them taking care of the house, taking care of groceries, taking care of, do they have more childcare? Do you already have that?
I just got a cleaner that's coming in cooking as well.
Great.
And then a babysitter, like 9 to 5, sort of side babysitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we're still pretty involved, so.
2 words. Night nanny.
Night nanny.
Night nanny.
Night nanny.
That's been the biggest difference for everyone that I've talked to in terms of women that are actually like operating or at an executive level, is just having someone to help sleep train the baby. Because a lot of the times, like, why is it so hard to get? They're having to sleep train the baby, and so it's having someone to help do that for the first couple weeks. Just a recommendation.
Okay.
In terms of in the workplace, I always use something like this as a reason to accelerate growth of other people. And so anytime that I have something personal come up where I have to take time off work or go do something, or I can't do something, I'm like, who can capitalize on this as an opportunity that's within the team, right? And so, a lot of you wouldn't know, but like there was presentations that I used to present on this day, and I knew I was going to delegate them at some point when we had the events. But then what accelerated that was that I had to have a surgery, and it fell on an event day. And I was like, oh shit, that's in 5 weeks, and I can't move any of this, and I can't move the event, can't move the surgery. That sucks. And so, that accelerated me saying, like, who could this be an opportunity for? And there was somebody on the team who I was like, this person would be great at, learning this presentation. And then they something that you might think takes 3 or 4 months for somebody to learn, when you have a deadline and they know how important it is to do, they can accomplish it. And so I think this is a great opportunity for her to look at the team and say, like, let me look at 50% of the work I have right now. If I had to delegate it, who would I delegate it to, and what timeline would I give them? And they kind of already have a date because it's like, when's the due date?
Yeah.
So I think it's a really good opportunity.
Yeah, thanks.
For sure. Let's go all the way in the back, the glasses.
When hiring for a position such as a general manager for brick and mortar locations, which, they do a lot of stuff, what are the 3 main traits you look for when hiring for that position?
So it's an operations manager for a physical location.
Yeah. Because they do a lot of stuff, so it's like, what's the most important thing you look for?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a couple. Do you want technical skills or character traits?
Well, character traits for me are always more important in my experience, but technical also helps.
I would say somebody who's hardworking, enthusiastic, and detail-oriented.
Okay.
And then how that translates into technical skills is I want somebody who is sales-driven, has sales aptitude, because when you're running a single location, like, if you're not able to make sales and generate revenue, that's a little tough. And so I wouldn't want someone who just knows, like, back office, back operation stuff. That's actually not, when we're looking to hire, like in our portfolio companies that have locations, I'm looking for sales-oriented people who we can teach a lot of the customer success and operational side too. That doesn't mean that eventually one day you're going to have one mega operator over all of them, which that would happen eventually if you expand locations. But for just like a single location, that's what I'd be looking for out of somebody. And I think you want somebody that wants to put all of that, that's hungry. They want to put all of their discretionary effort into this location, because what you'll see is that to make single location metrics work, you can't have some giant team. And so a lot of people hire the wrong, I would say, like, avatar. They hire people that just want to clock in and clock out to run their locations. It doesn't really work in a small business single location. At least, like, the profitability difference is insane. Like, we have one chain and their locations where we have what we call, like, the owner-operator mindset people, where we hired them with the intention of, like, this is, like, your location, you're running it, it's your business. Those locations are twice as profitable as the ones that have hired just like clock in and clock out. And that's just discretionary effort. It's not like they're not doing the job. They're just not putting in that extra effort,
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
But like a lot of skills, I think, for running a single location of certain things, like, can be taught. It's not something that you need to be able to hire that exact person who's done it before.
Yeah, just for the record, my experience is always easy to teach these skills to someone with aptitude and a good heart than trying to hire, technical people that are just horrible people.
Yeah, just not a match. That's great then. You're on the right track.
All right, thank you.
For sure. Right here.
I have a question around reputational risk of being on social media for business. So I'll just give you some context. So I'm in real estate. So we buy and sell real estate. We have, a brokerage. We have 20 agents. Now we hired a brand strategist, earlier this year, and they said that you don't have a Google page, which is crazy because we sold 300 million worth of real estate. We didn't have a Google page.
Wait, say that again?
So we didn't have a Google page for our brokerage, and we sold a lot because I was doing it all off YouTube, and there was a lot of trust being built there.
Yeah.
But we built the Google page, then we called our clients as part of our client care, and we got them to give us reviews, and we had about 103 reviews in a week. So that was good, 5-star reviews. Yeah. But then what happened was that, while I was making content, there are haters as well. And then one person gave us 1 star, not our client. They gave us 1 star, then another. Our Google rating dropped down to 3.7. We called Google. We are trying to solve that. But yesterday, I think 3 days ago, we actually shut down our Google page because that was actually impacting our business more than it was benefiting us. So how do you manage that, especially when I'm looking to scale 10x my brand in the next 2 years?
Well, I would ask a couple things, which is, one, why were the people leaving the 1 stars? Was it good feedback?
No. So it was just 1 stars and then saying he's a complete fraud. And it's when you are getting bigger on YouTube, it's not like we are committing fraud.
Yeah.
But because you're talking a lot about what's happening wrong in the industry, there are certain elements who are your competitors who would put some, and then you have to fight a lost cause, and that's what we realized with Google, of getting those off, because they are not our clients, so they are not legit reviews. And then we just thought, it's a lost cause.
So are you losing business because of this?
We could have lost business because it's a high trust business, right? People do Google us, and right now they find all my content there and my website and everything. But then because the Google reviews were over 100, we actually had the second hit was the Google reviews, and that was 3.7.
But do you know for sure that you were losing business because of it?
No. I don't know for sure, but
Yeah.
I know that that's probably the second or the third most thing that people would do in real estate when they are trying to work with someone, because it's such a high, high involvement business.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that it's, and this is something that I've actually, we've had multiple people in our portfolio deal with, and it's, I don't focus ever on hiding or padding the negative or detracting from it, nothing. I don't pay any attention to it. In fact, someone can say the meanest thing, they can make a terrible YouTube video about me, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I'm not commenting, I'm not responding, I'm not going to tell anybody, nothing, right? Leave a 1 star, I don't care. Instead, I just focus on how can I create more positive. And so you just want to have so much overwhelming positive that you can put out there through content and through reviews and all those things that it eventually will bury any other thing. So that, for example, if I'm looking at a business and literally everything everywhere is all 5 stars, it almost seems fake. So I actually don't think it's terrible if you have some platforms that you have lower ratings, because it's okay, that's realistic. I don't think anybody's perfect. No business is perfect, right? And so I would just take all that energy that you focus on, what do we do about the Google, to what are all the other platforms? Trustpilot, for example, is one that we could go on and say, how can we increase our reviews there, and then add those reviews from Trustpilot to our landing page and to all these other things. That's what I would be focusing on. Okay. And I've never seen the opposite work. I had one CEO who was just paranoid and just literally tried to get a hacker to hack at. And I was just dude, in all this effort that you put into getting this hacker to take these reviews down, which were good. In that case, I was these are pretty good feedback. That was kind of fucked up that this person did. I would have probably left a review too. I've left 2 Yelp reviews in my life. And so I would say just focus on what you can do on the positive. And also, it's not good for your headspace to focus on that in terms of the negative. So this is better anyways.
Yeah. Makes sense. Thank you.
For sure. Let's go right here.
Layla, your favorite video of mine is the one where you show behind the scenes of this event and all the rehearsals that went into it. I'm a public speaking coach, and I work with CEOs and their teams, so just seeing that process was great.
Thanks.
The question I had for you is, my ideal clients are a lot like you, successful people who run events like these.
Is this a pitch?
But I've never had to, maybe it's coming, who knows?
It's happened.
I've never had to pitch anyone for my business. Usually it's referral or they find me online. But now to expand my business, I know I have to try to do that. But I don't know how to get access to people like yourself and what offer to reach out to them with. So what would you recommend?
Yeah, it's interesting. So what's your offer right now?
Usually they have me come in, look at all their slides, give them feedback on the actual rehearsal. So I'm consulting them on the presentation and the delivery. So I don't have an offer per se.
Understood. Is there a way that you could get some of those things ahead of time and then literally do a review of a piece of it and send it to them?
It's hard because a lot of these things are confidential until I sign the contract and I show up. So I don't even know they're having an event until they reach out to me.
Yeah. Because, the best way, how anybody ever gets my attention is they do an enormous amount of work ahead of time and then find a way to get it in front of me. And then I'm like, damn, that was, really impressive. And then I almost can't. I'll give you an example. I have a girl who I put a post up. I was like, I'm a stylist because, I have these pants don't fit right. And I was like, I need a stylist. Somebody help, right? And so I put this thing up, and it's everyone submits maybe 3 pages, 5 pages of outfits or something. This girl sends me a 140-page document. Photoshop my body into all these outfits. 140 pages. It's I couldn't even say no to her. I was just it was overwhelming, and they were all freaking awesome. And so I was just holy shit. And she had the methodology on each one behind why she selected that style. And then her offer was, work with me. I will do this for free for 6 months. And if you like it, then we can do business together. And I was like, how the fuck do you say no to that? I mean, like, really. Like, I liked it. It was great. It was overwhelming. I love the fact that she hustled. And I was like, I respect that. And so I sent her an email the other day. I was like, all right, let's do it. So that's what I'd be trying to figure out for them is, like, you have to deliver the value ahead of time because options is not an issue for anybody in my position. It's like you have overwhelming options. It's how do you stand out and become the best option, which in a lot of cases, like for people that I would say, like, you know, the worst thing you can do is like try and position yourself as like, I am the scarce. It's like, fuck that shit. Like anyone that tries to do that to me, I'm just like, dude, I just don't give a fuck. Like I'm not that way. I don't want to deal with people that are that way. But if somebody can give overwhelming value, they will get my attention. I can pretty much think that for every vendor that we work with at acquisition.com, that's how they've gotten in. It's that. It's like finding something that you can deliver ahead. So for you, it's like there's confidential stuff. Like, is there something you can find that's not confidential? Content they put out, things that they have on their platforms, anything that you can do where you can do a breakdown and send it to them in an email format, something easy to digest. That's what I would be thinking of, like, how can you do that? I'm damn sure that would work.
Yeah. So I'm going to go learn Photoshop, and you'll get an email from me then.
God. Good. Let's go right here.
So I have to let go of a whole department because it's not profitable. And the question is how I communicated with the team. And also the people I have to let go.
Okay, so you're going to close the department.
Basically.
I'm sorry, that fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. The way that I would do it is I would first let the manager go. Consequently, then I would meet with every individual. How many people are there?
One manager and 3 people.
Okay. So you'll meet with them all individually. I think some people do these in group. I would never do that. I would make sure that I gave them all a severance package anytime that I've had to shut down a department for any reason, whether it be monetary or otherwise. I always try to give them more than I'm even comfortable with because you're just trying to get them off on their feet. The next best thing, and what I did when I had to lay off our customer service team at Prestige Labs, I have the story of this on my YouTube, is I literally tried so hard. I contacted every friend I had that had customer service departments, and I got everybody to say what roles were needed for them, and then I got people lined up with interviews. So if they didn't fucking hate me and want me to die, I was like, well, I have 5 interviews for you if you would like them. I also pre-wrote all letters of recommendation for everybody that I let go. So it's like severance package, line them up with interviews, letters of recommendation, meet with everybody individually, and accept the fact that you're going to feel like shit for like a week. When I met with everybody, I was just completely honest. I took it all on me. I didn't blame it on the business, nothing. I said, this is my fault. I did not properly hire with, forecast. I didn't know. I'm ignorant. I literally said, I was like, I would fire me, but I can't because I own the company, so here we are. Yeah, everyone else is stuck with me. That's how I felt at the time. I felt like really shitty. So I think you're just honest. You don't put any blame on them or the department or anything. You just say, like, hey, I'm really sorry. This is terrible news, but I'm going to have to lay you off because we have to close the whole department.
And also then communicate the same way with the rest of the team because, like they like each other and...
Yeah, you have to be as transparent as possible. Like, my transparency saved me with Gym Launch because the thing is that if everybody else, they're going to be scared no matter what you say. And they're even more scared if they feel like you're lying to them because then they're like, well, who's next? What's really going to happen? And so I told my team, I was like, listen, I overhired. And it's fucked. But, like, I overhired by a lot. We had 15 people that, like, were doing nothing. And so I just owned it. I said, listen, I'm not perfect. This is my first time ever having a company this big, and I made a huge mistake. And I'm embarrassed, and I'm ashamed, and you guys don't deserve this, and I will never let this happen again to the best of my ability. That I know how. Obviously, I never anticipated this because it really fucked with me as a leader because I considered myself to be, like, all I ever wanted to be was a great leader for my team. And that's what drives me in business. And then I did the thing that is, like, the complete opposite of that, despite all of my intentions and wishes. And so I just was honest about it. I think it was probably the only time I don't, like, cry in front of my team, like, I don't. But, like, I think I cried on the call a little bit because I was just, like, I felt terrible, And I was like, I know you're friends with all these people. I encourage you to keep being friends with them. They probably fucking hate me. But I was just completely honest, and I said, I understand if you guys have lost trust in me or faith in me, but I'm also not going to sit here and lie to you about what happened because I don't think that's going to make anything any better. And I would say also just expect that people are going to be like a little shook for 6 to 12 months. I know. But companies go on for, I mean, gym launches, they called themselves the survivors of the purge. I wish I was kidding. They're like, I went to the event like this, and they were like, remember, because we survived the purge. And I was like, no. And I was like, dude, that's like not funny to me, but I like appreciate that you guys like still believe in me. So yeah, I'm sorry you have to do that. Be as honest as possible and just overextend yourself for the people that you're letting go, because how you let them go is going to say it will translate into how you feel about yourself as a leader for the next however long.
Thank you very much.
Of course. Let's go right here.
If you don't mind sharing the most effective strategies that you implemented at Gym Launch for retention and ascension.
Well, retention, I don't know if anyone here has read the book Gym Launch Secrets, but we have what we call the 5 horsemen of retention. A lot of times, if you're looking at retention, it's really, I would say, you probably want to switch to, instead of focusing on retention, focusing on time to value. So leading indicator of retention is how quickly do we deliver value to the person who purchased the product, or how quickly do we get them to use the product. The two usually go hand in hand, but like getting them to use it and then get value from it as quickly as possible, that's for the most part, one of the highest leverage things you can do to retain somebody. The second piece to it is, did you know that more customers leave a company because of customer service rather than the product or the price? Interesting, right? That was a study that just came out by McKinsey. It was like 2 months ago. And so I say that because I think a lot of people think, oh, customer service, customer communication, all the soft stuff. Fuck that. This is how you actually have a business. And so I would focus on time to value and the communication that I have with the customers and what kind of experience I'm trying to create for them. Because when you think about retention, there's 2 sides to it. There's results and there's experience. And a lot of businesses tend to, especially smaller businesses, they can deliver results. But the experience is kind of shitty. It's like you don't always get back to people in time. You don't know when you're going to hear from somebody. It's inconsistent, right? Where on the other side, some businesses are great at experience, right? These are the kind where, like, say you have a friend and they're in like a mastermind or something, and it's like one day you're like, hey man, like how much more money are you making? You've been in this mastermind for 2 years, and then they're like, the same. And then you're like, well, what the fuck? Why are you paying $30,000 a year for a mastermind if you're not making any more money? And then they're like, oh shit. And you're like, they had these cool like events, and we go to this thing, it's this whole thing, right? And so the best businesses where you have the retention zone is where you are able to deliver high results and high experience, both of those. And so like our team knows this because we talk about like for these workshops, like how do we increase the experience, not just from a professional standpoint, but a personal standpoint. You guys travel here, you come a long way, some of you are out of the country. Like how do we make it as comfortable as possible? We got a long way to go. But I do believe that that's where you are able to retain a customer at the highest degree. And so those are the things I'd be thinking about. In terms of ascension, retention is obviously the first piece to it. In terms of ascending people, I think most people try and ascend people too late. And so a lot of the times it's like every buyer has a different phase that they want to upsell, right? And so there is a phase of buyers that are very excited in the beginning and they want more of what they've already got. And so they're actually usually eager quite quickly, like early on, in the first couple weeks, 4 to 6 weeks maybe even, where they're like, I just want more of what I just got. It's kind of like, think about if you go shopping. It's like, oh, okay, for women. You go shopping, and you're like, I'm going to go shopping. But like the next weekend, you don't want to go shopping. But when you're shopping, you're like, all I want to do is shop. I'm ready to spend money right now. Yeah. And so a lot of buyers are like that. It's like they're in a buying phase, and they want to buy in the beginning. And so how I look at it is you want to have indicators of when you can offer. So for Gym Launch, for example, we did not offer anybody to upsell or ascend until week 6, unless they left a testimonial where they earned back not just their initial investment, but 50% more of that. So it's like 1.5x what they put in is what they got out. Then we would say, all right, this person's so excited, and they left a testimonial. Let's reach out to them and see if they have any interest in ascending. And a lot of the times, those people would ascend. Then we also had it at the 6-week mark because we knew that what was 6 weeks? 6 weeks was right after we had the first time to value, which was the average gym owner made back their initial investment in the first 30 days. And so 6 weeks in, people have already made back their initial investment plus some. And so it's like, great, that's a great time to ascend people because they've already made back their money. They've seen value from the program. And then the last phase is for the laggards, I would say, which is kind of like cleanup. And for that, what we used to do is kind of send a letter or an email with like a personal video, just like, hey, How's the program going? Like, do you need more help? Because you're actually kind of slow, right? And so if you think about it, it's like you have all these different personas that are going to buy from you, and they all are ready at a different time. And so the business that makes the most offers to Ascend, tastefully, like given the indicators, will upsell the most people. So again, it's like you want the indicators, like left a testimonial, hit the time to value, or like they haven't, and maybe they just need more help. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Let's go right here.
So we didn't plan this, but we're an all-female group, a medical practice. And when I first opened, I kind of swung the pendulum like a doctor, put your head down and work. And that didn't work. So then we did a 180, and people didn't feel appreciated. There were different things. So swung the pendulum the other way, and then did too much, like gave too much, too many parties, too many things.
Yeah.
So now I feel like I'm kind of in the middle, kind of figured it out. But then I'm trying to lead by numbers. So I saw your video about using metrics, but that still doesn't seem like it's being well received. And I don't know, but you can't argue with the data. So how do I use that as my lead point to still keep the pendulum kind of in the center? I'm always willing to give and take, but I feel like there's still this emphasis on give by the company and not so much on the other side.
Have you shared with them any of this?
I have, but again, it's all women. So, and I don't know how to. It feels like it's very emotional discussion, but it doesn't come back to. It stays on the emotional side. It never comes back to the factual side. And so, do I have the wrong people, or is it my delivery? Like I just try to figure this out, and
It might be a combination of both.
Right.
Because I would say, like, we've got, our team has like 50% women probably, and I don't think that they don't argue with the facts, Okay. And I think that's something that you set as a precedent as their leader, which is like what's acceptable and what's not, what's okay, what's not. I don't look at a guy, girl any different. Right. I have guys that emote too. Like, it is what it is. I would say that in terms of changing the culture towards being more data-oriented,
yes.
That's something that I would deeply communicate with them as to why it's so important. Okay. And so, for our team, for example, anytime that something is really important that I want to continue to get the message across, it's like I'm going to continue talking at them over and over again about the topic, right? And so, like, something that's this quarter top of mind for me is like communication silos. As our team has expanded, we added like almost 20 people this last quarter. Communication starts to segment, and we're not getting enough peer communication and feedback. And so, like, at our quarterly, that's what I talked about. At our, I did a leadership Q&A, that's what I talked about. And so it's continuing to reinforce the message of why it's important. And so for you, I would say that they probably need a session where you explain why data is important, because this is the way I would position it. My job is to look out for the business, because the business feeds everybody here. And I can't do that without data. And so, listen, I don't like collecting data more than any of you guys, right? Like, I don't like having to have spreadsheets and systems and, like, typing in numbers. Like, that's the last thing I want to do. I got into this because I want to help people, right? But we can't help people unless we have all of that. And so you have to tie it back to how it impacts the people that they actually want to help.
And how it affects them, too.
Exactly.
Okay.
How's it going to give them more job security? How's it going to actually help them help the patients more? Like, every time I'm thinking about how to get a team bought in, I'm thinking of how does it benefit these individuals rather than me, the company, the customer. It's like how's it going to be individually beneficial to everybody here? So I think that's what you want to speak to. And if people are opposed to doing things, I think it's also like this is not a democracy at the end of the day. And so just because you guys all don't want to do this is what I have to do to make this business work and for us to actually serve our patients to this degree. So if you don't want to do this, like, let me know in private, but either get on board or get off. Like, at some point, you have to put your foot down and say, like, this is unacceptable. Because if your team is not adhering to a way of doing things that's going to make you a better business owner, a better business, it's going to help grow the business, it's going to help the customers more, then that's just irresponsible to let that behavior continue.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Right here.
There are a lot of us medical doctors in the room that have left just regular Western medicine and are doing our own practice. What is the best piece of advice for those of us? Like, I own a med spa. I know he's got a cardiology, trying to prevent people from actually needing a cardiologist. There's a lot of us that we're not taught business in med school.
Yeah.
What's the best piece of advice for those of us that actually want to do this and do it big?
You need to make a decision of which way you want to go.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example, which is I talked to a plastic surgeon because I got my nose done. And he was like, how do I grow my business? And I was like, dude, you have two routes, which is either you get in the business of training other doctors and learn how to expand locations. But that means you have to know, are you a good teacher? A lot of plastic surgeons, for example, very egotistical. They're like, I am God. Look at your face now. And I'm like, okay.
It looks good, though, by the way.
I was like, yeah, it's not bad, right? But seriously, though, you get what I'm saying. It's
Yeah,
like,
totally.
I was like, are you the best teacher? Versus, like, how do you get the absolute most? Like, I would say, like, Tony Robbins it, right? Like, Tony Robbins has maxed out the, like, personal brand, like, in terms of how much money he makes from it, in terms of the team size. He has learned how to leverage himself to a degree where it's like he is the main deliverable, right? And he has all the people that help facilitate that. But I see it as, like, those are the two routes you have, like the Tony Robbins route and you have the trainer route. And so I think it's for everyone that is, it could be medical or it could be, you know, just like owner-operator practice of any sort. That's kind of the decision that has to be made is, like, which route do you want to go? The reason I say it for medicine is because a lot of you guys are in a position where you have built a really great reputation, and that can go a long way as well. And there's a lot of, I would say, more opportunity on the training side than there is for somebody like a gym owner. It's just not the same. And, like, the purchasing power of somebody who wants to get better at medicine is so much higher than somebody who wants to be, like, a better gym owner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would say it's starting with, like, making that decision, and it's knowing yourself. It's like, do I want to teach and train people? And also know that some of them are going to, like, take everything and then be like, fuck you, bye.
Exactly.
Right? And can I deal with that? Am I accepting that downside versus, like, this downside, which is, like, a lot will rely on me. I will have a lot of upside, too, but a lot will rely on me.
That happens a lot in aesthetics. You'll
Yeah.
train people, and then they'll do their own thing.
Totally.
All right.
It's just that decision.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I don't think there's a right or wrong. Just knowing yourself and what you want.
Yeah. Thank
Cool.
you.
Of course. Right here.
Hey, Layla. So I actually talked to you about a year ago on one of your Q&As, and I asked you how to, or how I would help, or how I would recruit people to help me franchise my junk removal business.
Yes.
So since then, we've doubled our revenue. We opened a new location, and
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Really good.
Thanks. I talked to a few executives at, like, franchise level, people that cover the whole country.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a way better understanding now of franchising. But we have 3 locations currently, and I know originally you said to try to get to maybe like 10 locations. I don't necessarily see the benefit of, like, we would basically spend every cent of profit for the next 2 years to get to that level, and I feel like we wouldn't gain anything more than we have now. Yeah. That's my question. Why would we not franchise now?
Tell me, because I don't like your advice. Okay. Well, here's the question: is, like, what's the goal with the business? Because let me give you my perspective. Okay.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, a lot of people go to franchising because they don't know how to extend the LTV of the customers at each location, and so the locations themselves are not making them the money back fast enough that they don't want to keep opening locations. Whereas, like, with our brick and mortar businesses, for example, like, we look for businesses and then find out, like, what is not optimized here. Then we're like, how can we optimize the lifetime value so that we want to open more locations, and then we don't want to franchise because why would we want to do that? We could just own them all ourselves and take all the money for ourselves, right? And so that's why I'm in favor of just not franchising in general and just doing more work on the model itself to figure out, like, how do we just earn back our initial investment faster. In terms of franchising, the reason I say getting to 10 is because also, if you think about it, if you're trying to franchise, a lot of people, again, they start franchising too soon, and then what happens is that they realize that their model is not optimal. And so, like, what you're saying, like, well, we're going to put every dollar in. It's like, well, how long does it take to recoup the initial investment from the location would be my first question, because you're just going to pass whatever that pain in the ass on is to that franchisee. The second piece to it is just, are you building something that you want to sell soon? Are you building something because you want to build a big brand? Like, I think that's the next piece, because, like, franchising versus owner operated, like, I would be wanting to talk to people, seeing, like, if my goal is to sell the business, which model, right? Because you might be able to sell less locations that are owned by you and get the same amount of money as triple the locations that are franchised, right? Because franchise location metrics are usually worse than owner operated metrics, where it's like you own all of it, just because you see those people are usually better operators, they have better controls. That's all my information I want to give you, so you know what's in my head. So I guess the question is, what's the goal? Is it making money? Is it selling?
Yeah. So I think the goal, I mean, I don't want to sell. I want to take the company public and go like waste management style, and like M&A, and so.
So right now, how long does it take to recoup an initial, like all the investment?
The problem is, so to open a new location, you might be looking at like $60,000, but
Yeah.
most of that is just a vehicle. So then once you max out that one vehicle, then you just need to get another vehicle for another $60,000, and then you get another vehicle for another $60,000. So it's like we can open more locations, but we can also just grow our current locations. So I feel like I just want to plant 1 million seeds and just grow all those trees instead of like slowly slowly planting one seed, growing it for 3 years, planting another seed, growing it for 3 years. But I mean, we can make the 60.
So is cash the issue? Because like,
Yeah.
why couldn't you
just
just?
the capex, I think, is the biggest issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking to myself, like, well, why wouldn't you just open more? Okay, so if we like really take a step back, it's actually cash flow that's the issue.
Yeah.
Because you would own them if
Like,
you
it's-
could just
it's-
have the money to open them, yeah?
Yeah, like it's but it's like very like reliable profit, but it's just like not a ton of profit to where we can open like locations very quickly. It's basically like $60,000 every 3 months to scale a business, to scale each location.
Well, I see your options as this, which is you could franchise if you want to. The risks there are, I think, now you have quality assurance and management of all the franchisees, which is another business of its own per se. You could slowly open up the owner-operated model just using your own cash flow, which will take longer and require a lot of patience, but I'm sure they'll be more profitable in terms of locations, and then it will snowball eventually because you'll have enough profit and have maximized probably every ounce you can out of them. And then the last option is that you find a way to get money, and then you combine the two together, and you can go a lot faster. But that requires personal preference, because some people are totally comfortable doing that, and some people are not. I don't advise on either of those things because I actually don't have personal preference either way. I think it just depends on the person and their risk tolerance.
Gotcha. Thank you.
For sure. Right here.
How do you keep remote workers engaged and on task without micromanaging?
Well, the first question I had was about end-of-week reports. And so, do you do those?
Not currently, but I will be.
Okay. That's the first thing. I would just say keeping remote workers engaged, like I would say that I'll say this. When you hire people remotely, you do need to hire people, in my opinion, that have more of a base level of skill than if you were to hire in person. And here's what I mean by that. A lot of the times, there are certain people of certain experience levels that it doesn't make sense to hire remotely because they don't have the skill of self-management. I made this mistake in our first company by hiring people who didn't understand that, just because you work remotely doesn't mean that you're doing laundry, you're, leaving for 3 to 4 hours from, 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. When you have a job that's an actual 9 to 5 that you're on customer service, right? That would be tough, right? And so, is people who didn't know how to manage themselves. And they didn't understand that remote work didn't mean like, oh, I'm just not working as much as I would be in person. And so I think it does require, like, you have to determine, like, what are the base level skills that I actually don't think I should be training in people. I should just be hiring them already coming with those skills. That's the first piece, because in person, there's certain people, like, of that experience, right? Like, that same person who, like, literally left for 4 hours and also was, like, doing laundry on a call. If that person had been in this office, that behavior would not have been physically able to happen. And so that person could work in the office and probably be productive, but not able to work at home. That's the first thing. The second thing is that when keeping people engaged, a lot of times, in my opinion, it's getting people to interact with people that are not on their team and also giving people a variety of tasks. And so the more variety somebody has in the job, the more engaged they're going to be for the most part. And so something that I think about a lot with our team is how do I build an organization where I give people a lot of variety in terms of the work that they do so they can acquire a lot of skills and they have a lot of interest. Because if somebody has a lot of variety in the things they do, they constantly have something they can be working on and progressing in. And I think that a lot of people like that because if you have one thing and you get really good at it, you get really bored really quick. And so it's like, how do we put people on projects? How do we give people other things they can do? How do we cross-train people? How do we add more variety to the job? I actually think that fundamentally, whether it be remote or in person, is how we should be thinking about how to keep workers engaged. That combined with, like positive reinforcement for doing their job. I think a lot of people think like, well, I paid you to do the job, so like you should be engaged. It's like, well, not really. if you want people to be really engaged, like put discretionary effort towards it, then they should be high five, handshake, great job, you did good work as often as possible. And that's just a cultural piece.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Let's go here in the back.
I own a chain of martial arts studios, and something we struggle with a lot is retaining staff. We profit share with the common location leaders, the head person, the head instructor, and they make anywhere from $70,000 to $100,000 a year. But we constantly have people who say they're burned out due to stress or overworking. Our average hours worked last year was 41 and a half hours per location leader. So I've done a lot of things to make their work environment better and different incentives and things, but we're still struggling with it. So can you give some tips on how to deal with that employee that says, I'm burned out? What to do now?
I think a lot of the times people are burned out because they're not feeling the reward from their work in some way. And so that could be that they don't feel the impact they're having. It could be that they don't feel they're making progress, or it could be that they feel like they're not appreciated or recognized by their team or their boss. Okay. And so most of the time when I'll tell you this, if somebody tells me they're burnt out or they ask for more money, one, I don't have a problem if either of those things are truly but a lot of the times it's actually feeling underappreciated, feeling like you're not seeing the impact of your work, or you're kind of like stuck in a rut, like you're not seeing big progress. Like think about it for you. When do you feel burned out? Like I think for a lot of business owners, like we feel like burned out when you're trying really hard and you're not seeing the fruits of your labor, right? And so for a lot of workers, I would say like they feel that way when the same thing is happening. For example, when Alex is writing his book, it's like a lot of people don't write books because if you really want to write a good book, it takes a very long time. It's super tedious, right? And so when he goes through that process, it might be, 6 hours, 8 hours a day for a year that he's writing this book. And so while he's doing that, he's seeing no reward from it at all. And so like it's like a dark place to be, where it's like you're working so hard and like nobody gives a fuck, right? They just expect you to come out with this thing, and like if it's not like to the best of it, they're just like. And so I tried during that entire process to like tell him like, amazing, you worked on it so hard, it's going to be so great, like constantly, as much as I can, reminding him of how great it's going to be, how hard he's working, how impressed I am by him, how much I admire him for how hard he works, because I'm like, I won't fucking do that, right? Like, I'd rather be over here. So just like, really, I'm not making it up, but I'm trying to be the reinforcement because the work is not yet reinforcing. And so, in my opinion, what a great boss does is that they reinforce the teammate until the work reinforces them. So an example might be if you have somebody, a weight loss coach, you run a weight loss business or a gym or something, right? And they have people that they're trying to help lose weight, and they're not losing weight yet, right? Like you want to be the one that reinforces that person. Great job. You know what? You stuck with the plan. You did this until the scale says you've lost weight. And I look at that as like the job of a coach or a boss is to bridge the gap of the reinforcement. Until the work reinforces you itself, you reinforce them instead.
Thank you.
Yep. This side, right here.
I love your content, by the way. So you mentioned that every business owner thinks that everything in their business is breaking. And so what is your framework to evaluate if that something is real, like is breaking for real, or if it's just something that the business owner wants to have better?
Well, I would say that the main thing is like, is this the reason you're not growing? Is this preventing us from growing? Is it preventing us from the business like actually operating, right? So like, is this preventing the business from growing because we don't have enough CS and we aren't able to retain people? Is it preventing the business from growing because we don't have enough salespeople? I would be thinking about it through that lens versus like just not being perfect. And so a lot of times people that are great operators also have like very high standards, and so not being perfect is enough to say it's broken. But the reality is a perfect business likely makes no profit and doesn't grow because we're so busy tying up all these details that will never exist, at least not in the first 10 years of a business, that it's like you miss, like the forest for the trees. And so that's what I always ask myself, like, is this the biggest problem I should be working on right now? Like, if I put my time here, like you as a business owner, where you put your time, that's the most valuable resource that exists, is literally your attention. And so like I constantly am auditing, like, should I even be putting my attention here? I'll even have where like someone asks me a question, I'm like, is this really where my attention should go? Sometimes I just ignore it because I'm just like, I shouldn't even be thinking about this. And so it's almost like thinking of yourself as a resource. Is it the best use of your time to be solving that problem? And if it's not the best use of your time, maybe it can be the best use of somebody else's time. But I think that the founder and the CEO's time should be spent on the biggest problems or I would say unlocks in the business. Like, what constraint do you have to unlock to grow the business? And I try to put as much of my time in those areas as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good. Okay, one more. Right here.
Thanks, Leila. So
Yeah.
the main question is about I have a online fitness coaching business. So it's about the retention part. So we have a 48% churn. So only 4% of people that buy the first year still buy the second year. So the question is, what should we do? We have 2 tickets. So it's 800 3 months, 1,400 6 months. So most of the people get good results at 6 months, and they don't want to pay that price for the next month. So the question is, should I put lower ticket monthly subscription, and what type of service should we give?
Yeah. If you look at, for example, like SaaS, what do they do as time goes on for customers? Like, if you look at SaaS products, and this is from like a breakdown from Pricing.io, is basically like the companies that retain the most customers, what they do is actually the price goes down over time, which makes sense because usually it costs less to retain a customer than it does to get a new customer. So it makes sense that you would also charge them less over time because then they're incentivized to stay with you. So then the cost of switching is also higher because then they'll have to go in at somebody's new customer rate versus they get to stay at your old rate. And so I look at it as like this, which is one, how do you incentivize them to stay with pricing that matches the effort? Because once somebody's gone past that initial phase, I know the reality, which is like it's not as much on the coaches anyways or on anyone's checking in with them. So they do cost less to maintain anyways. The second piece is how do you frame that to them? Which is a lot of times what happens is that people in weight loss sell somebody on, you're going to come here and lose weight. But they don't talk about what happens after. Versus if you look at the companies that I've seen that retain the most, they are like, oh, we have 3 phases. The first is like rapid weight loss. The second is, here's you're going to hit your goal in phase 2, and we're going to like really dial it in, whether it's this, this, or this. And then the third is what we call, and they make up some word that means maintenance, right? Don't call it maintenance because that doesn't sound sexy. And that's like we're going to reorient you into how you can, ramp back up, start eating more, whatever. Usually reverse dieting to some degree. And then we're going to set a new goal because what we've seen is that for people who lose weight, and this is true, they need to set new goals. And so for me, when I was doing fitness stuff, reaching back like 10 years, what I would do for all my clients is like once they hit their weight loss goal, we had epic races, we had Spartan races, we had bodybuilding, we had bikini competitions. I was like, listen, you always need a goal, even if it's just to get strength, to maintain, whatever. And so if you look at the programs that have the highest retention, they always have a goal. It just isn't always weight loss. And so I think it's just you have to set a new goalpost because right now they don't have one. And the likelihood is like you're not going to actually have helped that person because they're probably going to gain the weight back if they don't set a new goal anyways. Does that help?
Yeah, a lot. Would you do it like monthly, or would you like monthly subscription or a longer term?
Incentivize them to purchase annually.
Okay.
So like, bar none, like of all industries, getting someone to pay in full for a year has more success and higher retention. So it's better for the customer and the company. So I would offer that as the first offer. And the second offer is like, here's our 3-month and here's our month-to-month.
Okay, thank you.
So 3 payment options at most.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
of course. All right, guys. Neil's going to come back, and he's going to wrap it up for everybody. I appreciate the leftovers.